Welcome to Stillworks and Brewing. My name is Randy, and this is a channel that's all about home distillation and brewing. Alright, so what do we got going on for you today? Today we are going to make a honey brown ale, and it's one of my favorites. Okay, first things first. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button down there. And since you're going to do that, go ahead and hit that notification bell. Share us with your friends. If you like what you see, give us a thumbs up. And please leave a comment and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Okay, so let's get started with this ale. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pump some hot water over. It's about 180 degrees. I'm going to pump it over to my mash tun here. Yeah, like I said, I'm going to pump me over about 3 gallons of water, then we're going to add in our grains. And then that should drop the temperature down. I'm looking for like right around 154-ish, 55. Okay, so there, right about there is going to be 3 gallons. Almost. Alright, there's 3 gallons. And what we'll do now, and I'll put the ingredients list down in the description down there. So our mash tun in here. Whoops. Try to get this stirred in with no dough balls. Doesn't seem like I've made beer for you guys in a while. My kegerator's empty. That's not a good thing. Alright, so that's mixed in. What I need to do now is we're going to check our temperature. 149. I'm going to leave it right there. Okay? So let me put the top on it. Put the top on there. We're going to give it we'll set the timer for, I don't know, hour and 15 minutes, somewhere in that neighborhood, about an hour. And then we'll move on to the next step. Okay? So we'll see you in about an hour. Okay, let you know where I'm at. Let me start from at the beginning. I put me about 9 gallons of water in my brew pot. And I warmed it up to about 162 degrees. I put 3 gallons of that water into my mash tun, stirred in my grains, okay, and then we let it sit for an hour and a half. It was actually an hour, 15 or 20 minutes, and then I brought the rest of the water up near boiling and pumped it over in my hot liquor tank. So what we are ready to do now is sparge our grains over into our brew pot, and we're going to start boiling. Okay, I'll be back in a minute. Let's bring our mash tun over, and we're going to start sparging all of our grain over into our brew pot. Oh, look at that nice color. I like to batch far as my grain, what that means is I'm going to drain this out. I'll add more hot water, stir it up, and then drain it out until I collect about 5.5 to 6 gallons of wort. Alright, let this drain, then I'll stop back. Okay, we got all our grains sparged over into our brew pot here. Once it comes up to a boil, the next step will be to add 1 ounce of cluster pellet hops, okay? And then that's going to be for a 60-minute boil. And then the only other thing we got to do is at flame out, after the 60 minutes, we'll add our honey. And that's it. Then we'll start on the next step of putting it into fermentation. Okay, so when it's ready to boil, we'll come back and we'll put the hops in and see what happens. Okay. Okay. Just like a lot of things, when she comes to a boil, you gotta make sure you keep your eye on it, because when she comes to boil, it will boil over real fast and it makes one heck of a mess. So you'll see she's starting to foam up. She's getting ready to come to boil. So as soon as this starts to boil a little bit, we're going to cut the heat back and try to control her a little bit. So she's getting ready to come here. And once she comes up to the boil, we'll add in her hops. But just make sure you keep your eye on her. Okay, she's starting to boil now. See how much she's growing real fast? So I bet be turning that heat way down. You keep giving her a stir. Because it will be all over the floor here in a second. I just shut the heat off. She's trying to get away from me. There she goes. She's starting to calm down now. Like I said, you just don't walk away unless you like a big mess. Come on, calm down. Okay, she'll calm down here in a second, then we'll add her hops. Come on, baby. There she goes. Okay, and like I said before, we started with like 6 gallons. We're aiming for a 5-gallon batch of wort. So we're going to start with 6 because we'll lose a gallon to evaporation. You know, for boiling it for an hour. Okay, so let's go ahead and get our hops added in. Like I said, this is cluster hops. This is the only hop addition we have. Try to get the bag open. We'll add them hops. We'll let this boil for 1 hour. Then we'll cut the heat all together and add in our honey, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I'll be back. Okay, I got about 15 minutes left in my boil. So what I want to do is take my immersion cooler Just stick it right down there in that hot boiling wort, and that will sanitize everything that's on there. Okay, so we'll let this boil for another 15 minutes and we'll start cooling this wort down. Get ready to put it in the fermenter. It's been about an hour, so we turned the heat off. That's what I like to call flame out. And now it is time to add in 1 pound of honey. And then once we get this honey added in, we'll start down the cooling process of the wort, so we can get ready to put it in the fermenter. This is 1 pound of honey. Okay, let me get the water turned on to our immersion cooler. So what we want to do is we want to get this cooled down to below 90 degrees so we'll be able to add in our yeast. So let me let this cool for a while and I'll be back. Let's check the temperature of our wort, see if we're cooled down enough. And 82 degrees. That's good enough for me. Okay. We'll take our chiller out. Let's check our specific gravity. Okay, I'm looking at 1.55. Okay, the recipe called for 1.50, but I'll take 1.055. Okay? Alright. Okay, I got star sand in my bucket. So what we got to do now is let's drain our beer into our fermentation bucket. Let me move you down a little bit so you can see that. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is you want to give her a pretty hard stir to try to get a little bit of oxygen into the wort. That will really help the yeast. Okay, so let's add our yeast in. Let's grab a pair of scissors. I'm just sprinkling yeast across the top. Okay, we're just going to start sanding the lid. Okay. So we'll put an airlock on this. We're going to put it in our fermentation room, and then about 2 weeks we'll transfer this over into the secondary, and then after it's in the secondary, then what we'll do is we'll put it in the keg. Okay, So we'll see you in 1 to 2 weeks. Okay, so it's been about a week for our honey brown ale in the fermenter. I think it's basically the activity's pretty much stopped. So what we're going to do now is transfer it into the secondary fermenter. Oh, it smells fantastic. I got an auto siphon here. My secondary, I put star sand in it. Star sand in all of my siphon hose and all that. Oh, that beer's gonna smell good. Alright, so let me get this siphon down in here, then I'll be back. Okay. Okay, so we got it transferred over to our secondary. In the recipe that I did, it called for 1 to 2 weeks in the secondary. The foam you see on the top, most of that is from the star sand. The real white foam is from the star sand, which that don't bother anything. So we'll keep an eye on this next week. So basically what we're doing now for 1 to 2 weeks is let it clarify. And then we'll move on to the next step. And the next step would be putting it in the keg, get ready to enjoy. Okay? So it's been about 2 weeks. We siphoned our beer from the secondary into the keg. So the next step, the one important thing you want to do is, once you siphoned in there, you put the lid on and all that, I always lay them on their side on the bench. One important thing you always want to do is lay your keg down on the table like this and look around the seal for the lid, because what can happen is it might not seal too great and you'll see it leaking at this point. You can take what I usually do is take a towel and dry it up nice and dry, and then give it inspection. Make sure it's not leaking, because if it's leaking a little bit, you might lose all your gas once you put it on your gas. Okay? Okay, we're coming down to the finish line. So what we're going to do next is we'll take this keg full of beer, put it in the kegerator, let it get cold for about 24 hours, and then what we're going to do is after that, then we'll put jack your regulator up. I usually go about 30 psi. I know some people who go a little higher than that, but I go 30. Put gas on it. Leave that on there for 24 hours. Okay, and then what I do next is I lay it on its side with the gas hooked up, and I just kind of roll it. I just give it a little rocking motion. You'll hear the gas bubbling through the liquid, and I give it some rocks like this. Okay, hey, you're gonna hook up your liquid line. Okay, so once you get your forced carbonation done on your keg, all you gotta do is turn your regulator back to somewhere between 8 and 10 psi, your normal serving pressure, and you're ready to go. This is the best part of this hobby, enjoying what you make. It's a very delicious brown ale, a honey brown ale to be exact. Very good. Okay, there's just one last thing to say. Hey, thanks for stopping by. We'll see you next time. Cheers.